Got some significant developments in the Middle East. So the U.S. flew B-52 bombers over that region in a presence patrol exercise. That was a day after Israel's top general warned the new Biden administration against rejoining that 2015 Iran nuclear deal.
So at the same time, the State Department now has confirmed President Biden. He's pressing pause on major arms sales to Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Joining us to discuss all of this is Georgetown professor and executive vice president for the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft, Dr. Trita Parsi, a great friend of our show. Good to see you, sir. Thanks for joining us.
See you guys.
So, Dr. Parsi, break down all of these developments and put it in the context of, will we be re-entering the Iranian nuclear deal anytime soon?
I think so. I'm pretty confident that the Biden administration is going to rejoin the JCPOA, and I think part of the reason why it will do so is because it recognizes that it's a critical step in a larger strategy of trying to reduce America's military footprint in the region and lean more towards diplomacy. If you don't do the JCPOA, you're going to have a real hard time doing diplomacy on Yemen, on Syria, and on many other issues. What is problematic, of course, in all of this is the aggressiveness in which the Netanyahu government is pressing the Biden administration to refrain from rejoining. I mean, we're talking about a situation in which Israel's top general, as well as a cabinet member of Netanyahu's cabinet, has come out and essentially said that if the U.S. rejoins the JCPOA, Israel may start a war. So in the past, we heard Israeli threats of war if the Iranians went nuclear. Now we hear threats of war if the United States opts for diplomacy.
Mm-hmm. And Professor Parsi, what is giving you confidence that the Biden administration really committed to this diplomatic direction?
Well, again, because of the fact that many of these individuals who are now populating the Biden administration were deeply involved in the negotiations over the JCPOA, recognize how squarely it lies in U.S. national interest to revive it, and who also see that if they don't, we know what the result is, because the Iranians did not back down an inch when the Trump administration pursued maximum pressure and actually withheld some of their counter steps to first see what the United States would do. So we know now that if we continue maximum pressure, which has been a failure, then there's no reason to believe that Biden would succeed at it when Trump failed at it, that the Iranians will then restart aspects of their program, and we will be back to the position we were before, in which the United States had to choose between diplomacy or going to war. And mindful of the fact that we have an opportunity to do it, it would be shocking to me if they didn't. Now, there may be complications, there may be other unforeseen events that occur that could complicate matters, but I don't doubt the intent.
So this is the question then, which is that how is the Biden administration going to have to balance the Netanyahu government? This is what happened with the Obama administration, and of course it actually caused a bit of a rift. And now we have the UAE and Saudi, new alliance, whatever it is you want to call it, with the U.S. How is that going to shape their decision making? Because they don't want to blow up that relationship either.
Well, I actually think it wouldn't be so bad if we, whether it's blowing it up or not, recognize it's a relationship that is created in order to actually create this bipolar structure in the region that also then traps the United States in this conflict. The United States' interest is to transcend this conflict and help, if possible, to find a political and diplomatic solution rather than becoming a belligerent in the conflict. And I think very much that the entire structure of the Abrams Accord and the intent behind it was to make sure that the United States would not have that option, that the United States would be further bound to the security of the UAE, and as a result, end up having to take sides in this conflict rather than trying to find a solution. We have seen what taking sides means. It means endless war, and it means a further destabilized Middle East, and it means a less secure America.
And so how significant was this decision to pause at least the arms sales?
I think it's very significant if it becomes permanent. I mean, pause it temporarily, I think, is very welcome. It's probably sending a strong signal to the Saudis and the UAE that, the Trump era is over, in which these three countries had a completely open door in the White House and could get whatever they wanted, and oftentimes got it, whatever they wanted. But if it ends up being just temporary and the sales go forward, then I think the United States may nevertheless end up in the same pattern as in the past, and that pattern has not been helpful to the United States itself.
Yeah. And finally, Dr. Parsi, one thing that you always emphasize is that the timeline for getting back in the JCPOA is relatively short. Can you just lay out that piece for us?
Yeah, so the Iranians have their elections in June 2021, in just a couple of months, which essentially means that sometime by mid-March, the Iranians entered their political season, and it's not really going to be feasible to do any diplomacy. Beyond that, you now have a law in the parliament put forward by Rouhani's political rivals that say that if the U.S. sanctions that have been reimposed under Trump are not lifted by, I think, the 23rd of February, the Iranians should restart 20% enrichment, which means that they would walk away from another very significant element of the deal. All of this is adding time pressure, making sure that this is done rather quickly. I mean, you're talking about in the next couple of weeks. The challenge on the American side, of course, is the Biden administration just came in. They don't have their full staff yet, and they have quite a lot of other crises that they have to attend to, including a pretty significant amount of domestic crises that they have to attend to at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a tough slate. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Parsi. Always great to have your insights.
Thank you.
Coming up, YouTuber June Lapine, aka Shoe on Head, is going to join us to discuss a video that she recorded the same day of that Capitol insurrection, that when Rising returns.